How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing a bit of a comparison between these two. In my right hand, I have the DJI Osmo Pocket, and in the left, I have the FIMI Palm. Now, just by taking a quick glance at them, they do have very similar designs, but let's go ahead and do a deep dive and actually see how they differ. So one key difference between the two before we dive a little bit deeper is the Osmo Pocket comes in at a price tag of around $300, depending where you purchase it from, and the FIMI Palm comes in at $230. So keep that in mind as we go deeper into this review. Now, if you look at these two from a distance, they do look pretty similar, but if you get a little bit closer, you can see that the FIMI Palm is a little bit thicker. And if you look specifically on the bottom, you do have a wider base, and there is a little bit of a rubber material covering the bottom. Makes it a little bit easier to stand upright. It's a more sturdy, has a grippier feel, and definitely won't tumble over like I've had issues with on the Osmo Pocket, because it has those rounded corners as well, and the base just isn't as big as the FIMI Palm. Now, one of the biggest differences between these two is on the gimbal itself. On the Pocket, the entire assembly is actually made out of metal, whereas on the FIMI Palm, only a very small portion of it is made out of metal. It is surrounded by plastic, so I feel like it wouldn't last as long, or it couldn't really take a drop like the Osmo Pocket could. In the hands, the Pocket actually feels just a little bit more robust, if you will. It's a little more dense. It's got a little more weight to it than the FIMI Palm. And if you notice as well, the FIMI has a built-in joystick into it. Now, one really cool design element they were able to include on the back of the FIMI is a 1/4-inch thread. This allows you to hook it up to a tripod, ball head, stand, anything that uses something like that. Whereas on the Pocket, it doesn't have one whatsoever. You would need to purchase an additional accessory to get that kind of feature. Now, the battery life between the two seemed to be quite similar. I was able to use them both for about 2 hours before I needed a charge. This included recording at 4K, playing along with the slow motion recording capabilities, along with messing with the menus and things of that nature. I think that's a pretty good amount of time to get out of this, and it does have both USB-C ports on the bottom, and they do charge pretty quickly. You can charge while using it too, so if you wanted to, you could definitely use them for longer than 2 hours at a time. In using the FIMI for the last couple of weeks, one of the things that really bugged me was the menu system. It's quite hard to navigate, and the screen definitely isn't as touch responsive as the Pocket, which made it even more difficult to switch to the settings or just customize things to make it work better for me. Now, if we jump into the menu, you can see that we do have a subcategory for the gimbal settings, and if we click on that, you can see it brings us to a joystick speed. One thing to note about this is the fact that the joystick is only a 4-way button, so that doesn't really give you much room to fine-tune how quickly your gimbal actually moves. So it has this joystick speed that you can fine tune, but you cannot change it like you can real time in the DJI Osmo Pocket. Now, actually, let me explain what I mean by that by giving you an example. So if you wanted to take a panning shot and go from slow and then bring it down a little bit quicker, that's not something you can do on the FIMI. What you preset that speed at is what you get. Whereas on the Osmo Pocket, its joystick is a little bit more touch sensitive, and that's something you can actually do in real time. If you just slowly bring down the joystick on the Pocket, it'll slowly pan down, and the lower you go, the faster it'll move down. So just to kind of give you an example, hopefully that explained it a little bit better. Now that I've shown you some key differences between the two, let's go ahead and take a deeper dive on the FIMI Palm, starting with the photos. Now, this is a 12 megapixel sensor, and the images don't come out bad, but not great either. As you can see here, there seems to be a lot of vibrance already added to the images, as well as sharpening. This isn't really something that I was able to change. The camera does come with two different settings, one called fine and one called super fine. To be completely honest, I did take photos and video between the two settings, and to my eye, I was not able to tell the difference. One thing that I noticed though is with the images, they do look good as they are, but as soon as you crop in it just completely falls apart. And the same with editing. As long, like if you were to just quickly add a preset to it, the quality gets really pixelated and just really falls apart. Just something to keep in mind. Now, one of the biggest selling points for me of the Osmo Pocket was the fact that it shot 120 frames per second. It's something I use a lot in a lot of my videos just to get some nice cinematic B-roll. Now, with the FIMI Palm, it does also offer this in two different categories. One is 4x slow-mo and the other is 8x. 8x offers obviously a little bit more of a slow-mo, but it is 720, not full 1080. And if you look right here at 720, it just looks really, really bad. Very, very pixelated, super low res. I almost feel like it's way lower res than 720, even though it says it's 720. And you can see the difference here between the 4x, which is supposedly at 1080. The quality is completely degraded and much worse than just a regular 1080 that you would see anywhere else. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but that's kind of a shame. I think that's a really cool feature to include into a camera like this, but not really when it looks like that kind of quality. Now, as far as 4K video goes, I think they are both really, really good. The FIMI Palm seems to get a little more punchier in colors, but retain a really nice sharpness. Now, one thing that I did notice too is on the FIMI Palm, it only records at 4K 30, whereas on the Osmo Pocket, you do get the option of 4K 30, 24, and 25. I don't know if maybe that's something FIMI will add at a future date with a firmware update, but as of right now, it's only doing 4K at 30. Now, I did use this in a vlogging format where I just kind of held it out in front of me just to kind of test out the vlogging capabilities. One of the coolest things about this is the fact that it does have a wider lens, a much wider lens than the Osmo Pocket, which makes it a very capable vlogging camera. And I was quite impressed with the audio quality, especially in a somewhat windy situation. Here's a clip to give you an idea. So here's a test of the audio. As you can see with my hair, it's pretty windy. This is full stretched out in case you did want to use this as some sort of vlogging setup. I like testing it with the being backlit because it really does tell you how quickly it exposes in this situation, which is actually doing pretty well. So let me know down in the comments if this actually sounds good. I may not even be able to use this, but yeah. You can see it is pretty windy, just my hair flying everywhere. So as you saw in that clip, the lens is pretty wide. It actually focuses pretty well, and it also exposes very, very quickly. As you saw, I had the sun, I was backlit, and it was just automatically exposing really, really smooth and quickly and accurately, which is something I super appreciate in this camera. Now, another really cool feature about the FIMI Palm is the motion tracking. As you can see here, I set it to track my face, and it was extremely accurate and quite quick in doing so until I got to about 4 meters away from the camera. Then it struggled finding me, but as soon as I stepped back in a little bit closer to the camera, it had no problems tracking me. Now, the speed of which it tracks you at is something you can also set within the settings. You can have it move extremely quick or be a little bit more smooth and slower. Now, with my test between the two as far as the gimbal goes, I didn't notice any difference whatsoever. In fact, here you can see I am literally running with the FIMI Palm, and it is really, really smooth and stabilized footage. It's same with the Osmo Pocket. I didn't notice any difference between the two. So the gimbal, I would say, is pretty much the same. Now, if the price difference was a little bit bigger, let's say the Osmo Pocket was about 150 bucks more than the FIMI, I would say, sure, this is definitely a good value for the money. But since it isn't, I would say, honestly, save up just a little bit more and get something like the Osmo Pocket. Well, guys, that is going to wrap up this review / comparison between these two cameras. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Hopefully it was insightful. If there's a question that you have about either of these cameras, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!